Speaking of coaching, Oklahoma is going to have a big decision to make after another big time blowout loss to Florida. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there for tuning in and subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. The Oklahoma Sooners lost 85-62 to the number 2 Florida Gators on Tuesday night. And listen, it's the number 2 Florida Gators. They're really good at basketball. And I feel like Oklahoma was playing them decently defensively. Florida just can get up shots and they can hit shots. They're just a really, really good team. Losing by 23 sucks. It's terrible. Florida's really good. Oklahoma's not so good. That's going to happen. It's the 4th time in the last 5 games that Oklahoma lost by 18 or more. And, man, Joe Castiglione, Joseph Harris have a big decision to make. And I think that decision is probably going to be an easy one.
Somebody need to be fired at this point. Why do you want to drag this out for the rest of the season? The Oklahoma schedule is not going to get any easier at all going forward. We talked about this last time, but their last 5 games, they've got 6 ranked teams. They got 5 ranked games, 4 ranked games in the next 5 games. The next 4 games in a row are ranked teams from Mississippi State, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and then Missouri. And then the end of the season against Texas, in which Porter is 0-7 against Texas in his career so far, which is also another, shame ringing the bell in this situation. So to me, it probably they're out of the tournament. Which, go ahead and just say that. Yeah, I mean, you've got some quad 1 wins, cool, but that's not going to help you be able to make it into the tournament. So unless they pull out a miracle and win like 3 of the next 5 games, which we know is not going to happen, you probably should go ahead and just fire him there at the tarmac now and, move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, if Oklahoma has any chance of making the NCAA tournament, they've got to go at least 2-3 in their final 5. I think at least that. If you really want to solidify it, you got to go 3-2. And 3 of those wins have to be against ranked opponents.
Yep.
Or Texas. You got to beat Texas on the road. Like, I think that one would be significant enough if you were able to win that one on the road and go 2-2 in your other games. That would move the needle, I think, with the committee. But you can't go 2-3. I mean, I don't think you can't go 1-4, even if it's a ranked win. You're not going to be able to afford that. And so I think the time is now. If you want to salvage any part of this season when you're so close to making the tournament, you may or may not be able to make the tournament. You're out. Even if you fire him, you may not make it. But you might be able to kind of reignite some life into the program a little bit over the final 5 games. And if you do, then you're playing with house money. If you don't, you weren't going to make it anyway. So what's the point at this point of continuing to run out a guy who just hasn't inspired the program? In 4 seasons, we're at the same point that we were at the first year of Porter Moser's time here. We're still on the outside looking in of the NCAA tournament. And at Oklahoma, that should be fireable. You could go 1 season maybe, but you cannot go 4 seasons and not make the tournament. You can't go 3 seasons and not make the tournament. They probably should have made that move last year, but that buyout was so significant, upwards of $10 million at that point, that maybe that they just felt like, okay, it wasn't the right time to do that. Well, you're still looking at $7.5 million that you're going to have to pay Porter Moser in a buyout to move on from him. But it just doesn't work anymore. It's not working. Nothing's working. You can't rely on Jeremiah Fears to save you. You got to get some secondary scoring. This team is just not good enough. Porter Moser put the team together. Whether they're investing enough in basketball or not, it doesn't matter at this point. This is the head coach that you chose, and the head coach has put this team together. He's turned it over every season he's been here, every offseason he's been here, and they still can't put anything together, Jay. It's maddening to watch this team struggle to get a shot off. It's maddening to watch this team not be able to create a clean look or to run anything smoothly. And when they don't have their primary option, to watch them all just go into the tank and just stand there and watch. It's just not fun basketball to watch. And so while everybody wants to sit there and dog on the fans for not showing up, why would they? It's not an entertaining product. It's not a head coach that inspires confidence. Yes, you've got a potential lottery pick in Jeremiah Fears, but you don't have much else. I love Jalen Moore. I love that dude's game. But outside of those two guys, this team is just not built to entertain anybody. It's not built for excitement. This offensive system is not built for excitement. So I totally get why everybody's staying away.
I totally get it too. I mean, I know that a lot of teams a lot of fans in the SEC will, show up to games regardless of their teams winning or losing, if they're good or bad, just because, it means more. We'll get to that point. I think we'll get to that point. But the one thing that has to happen is basketball that actually looks like you care. That's kind of the most important thing. Like, not seeing much play call. The pass, pass it back and forth, go ISO, and hopefully get a score up, get a shot up. As many layups as we missed in this game, when I was watching it, I was like, I got to turn this thing off. I was getting tired. Every time I looked up, it's just miss layup, miss throw at the goal, miss throw. Like, there was not very good shot selection. There wasn't even good plays to get people open. I mean, Fears was trying to figure it out basically by himself. He went 7 for 15 in the game, so it wasn't awful. 4 for 8 from 3, so he had a solid game for him as a true freshman. But if that's the only thing you got going in that game, you're not going to win any games in the SEC. The SEC is a very tough conference, especially in basketball this year. So we got a tough football conference and tough in basketball. What are we doing here? I think a new voice is needed, especially like you said, John. The fact that it'll be 4 years straight, no tournament bid. Yeah, it's time to move on.
Yeah, it's time. And I think Oklahoma, with their next hire, needs to swing for the fences. Yeah, I get there will be some really intriguing mid-major coaches that go on a run in the NCAA tournament, have a Cinderella season, a la Porter Moser at Loyola Chicago a few years back. But no, if you want to excite this fan base and energize it, you need to go for a name hire, and you need to find somebody that's having success right now that's going to reignite and re-energize this fan base. You can't go for a mid-major that nobody knows. You got to go for a name, and you got to go for a big one, and you're going to have to figure out a way to find that money to go do that. And Joe, that's on you, man. I mean, I know a lot of people out there are not real pleased with the way things are going with Joe C. He's got a lot to prove right now as an AD, man. I think he does. Like, you can't live off the success that you had 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I mean, Patty Gasso is saving you right now. Outside of Patty Gasso and gymnastics, you don't really have a whole lot going for you. I think the Jenny Baranczyk hire was great, but in recent years, that's about the only strong hire that he's made. The Brent Venables one is very much in question, and Porter Moser is going to be out the door in a few weeks, if not tomorrow.
We'll see. Hopefully they make the decision and get that bad boy done. They just do it at the tarmac. Just let them know, hey, you won't be coaching here after this game. I think it's time for a new voice going into the last 5 games of the season. You never know. You may squeak out a couple of wins that helps you end up in the tournament. That probably would be nice.
You never know. Again, if you want to try to salvage a season, the best way to reignite a team is to make a change. It's the same thing that happens in hockey sometimes. You get down early and you're trying to find a new energy. You pull your goalie and see if that doesn't get your guys fired up and take them to another level. But we'll see what Oklahoma decides to do. And when they decide to do it, we'll discuss it here on Locked On Sooners. So make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. Follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.